Hello, in this video I've created a couple orange, very similar to the demo we did in class. I duplicated a layer, I've grouped each orange and its layers into its own folder. So what I'll do now is just turn off the layer 2, the orange 2, and I've got some water drops I'm going to turn off. So now let's just go back and talk about the different layers that I have here. So right here I created a layer mask, then I just did a gradient fill. So I'll demonstrate that maybe off to the side. So I'm going to click the shadow layer, or actually just this layer with the layer mask. And if I hold down Control and click on the new layer icon, it's going to make a layer directly below the current one, when it's usually above. So let's call this test. So what I'm going to do now on that layer is draw an ellipse. What I did was just, I drew the orange first and I filled it, so I made the layer mask. So with this test, I've got foreground and background, white to black. I'm going to click on the gradient tool, I click up here, and if you hover over it, it's this foreground to background. So what I could do here is a foreground to background layer, and I can get my shading. But this is a ball, so why don't I try the filter up here, and it's more of a round filter, like a radial filter. And I didn't want my shadows to be that so dark, so I kind of went sort of beyond the this range here, so the total black doesn't come until the end of the mark. So you can play that, get the color you're after. Right now I've got the orange color clipping here, so if I hold down Alt, click on the line above, now you can see what I did with the orange. I did a render, so I go back to my test layer here. I selected a couple of orange colors, one a little darker, a little more red. And for the back, and then the same thing, but maybe a little lighter orange. Okay, so here I've got a couple of shades of orange, and then I could come in and I think first what I'm going to do is Control click here, and then Control Shift I. And so I wanted to save this selection, so now what I'll just do is filter, render clouds. So that kind of just broke up my orange color a little bit. And that's what I did here. Just give a little bit of a color change. This is an overlay layer. It's blend mode, and it's getting clipped. Everything using this clipping mask. And I'm not sure why that, oh, never mind. I just turned off this clip thing here. So let's go ahead and make that a clipping mask. Control D, turn it on. And I'm going to do the same thing for everything else here. Also make that a looks like I need to do one at a time. Okay, so those are clipping masks. So I had that sort of gradient color on my orange, and it's being overlaid over this white and black here from the radial gradient. And then I went in and I added a pattern. Now, the way I created the pattern was, let's view, window, arrange, consolidate all the tabs. And the next thing I did was go to the overlay layer, and I overlaid sort of an orange pattern over the top. So for that, I just found just a swatch online. I made sure it was a 512 by 512 image, and I did the offset trick where you offset it by half the amount, so that was 256, and then I went in and kind of cloned out the seams using the clone tool. And to do that, you just click on Alt for your source, and then Paint for your little paint, just whatever you got in there. I use the healing brush tool to get rid of the logo, which is just like magic. You want to be careful how you do this stuff, though. It's like a little bit here, a little bit there, and then you'll maybe re-clone. So that was with the filter offset, how I moved it to wrap the image around this way and that way. Then I defined this as a pattern after I had touched it up. So see, I got rid of the logo, got rid of the seams, touched it up as a pattern, and then I filled the pattern in a larger image. I guess, I don't know if this is a 1024 or size. I think it was a 2048. Yeah. So then I filled the pattern, and you can see the continuous pattern here. So then I went into Filter, High Pass, and that will kind of take down, it'll take down these different values and usually make it like a grayscale image. So then it's going to be a lot better image to use to overlay over my orange. And then I went in and I bumped up the levels, so Control L. So something like that would, something like that would increase the darkness, and this would be the lightness. And then you can kind of go in between with the midtones. So after the fill pattern, I just did a little bit of adjustments. And then that's what I put over top here. And for this, I just went and click this this warp tool, so I was able to make it look a little more rounded. So I just kind of scaled it in the middle, so these pits are a little bigger in the middle than they are on the sides. Okay, enter there. So then I added my multiply layer, and here's where I'm starting to paint with cool colors. So this is a multiply. As you can tell here, I was painting with a blue color. Go to normal. You can see kind of the blue color that I was painting in there, but if you turn it back to multiply, so I'm adding some blue in with my oranges to make the shadows a little more exciting than just a value from like a darker orange or just a lighter orange. You want to get cooler values for the shadows and warmer values for the highlights. For shadows, it's good to use complementary. So complementary of orange is going to be, into the blues. Then I overlaid some yellow over the top. And with the screen blending mode, I put some highlights in. I did a screen copy. It just sort of, you can take a layer and just duplicate it, and it's going to enhance it a little bit. Then you can merge them later. Then a final layer just for a few more touch-ups. I think I just wanted it to, maybe just have a little bit more of a painted look. So that's the first orange. Okay, and then I duplicated, for the shadow, I just took an ellipse. Let's go back to my test layer here. The shadow, I just took an ellipse, like that, and filled it with black, and then Control V, deselect, and then I filter Gaussian blur, and so that's going to give my shadow a little less of a harsh edge, and I just positioned the shadow, and this is the shadow layer here, so let's put this test down below it. Then put the shadow beneath. So then when I had the orange, then I duplicated. You can either drag some layers down to the folder icon, or you can just hit Control G to add selected layers to a group. Now, if you go to V and go to your Move tool, you can see here I've got layers set. So what's going to happen, whatever layer I click, it's just going to move that layer. Let's try to pick another one. So you can see I'm just moving layers, and what I want to do is move the entire group. So what you have to do for that is make sure that this is not on this automatically selected group or layer. So click that off, and now I can grab the whole group. Okay, so make sure you know about this. Very important. And then an effect that I did, so I've got two oranges. The only difference here is, so this orange, this shadow was, this ground shadow was kind of overlaid on the orange, and I didn't want it to be, and it would have some element of that shadow there. It'd probably be smarter to have some of it, but what I did just to get rid of the shadow in this area here was went to the orange too. If I click on the layer mask and then control click it, so that makes this a selection, and then I can go back to my orange one on the shadow and just click on delete. So for example, set to normal, and the shadow was kind of coming over here, you see from this one. So if we just hit delete, that's going to get rid of the shadow part because it's within the selection. So I used the selection of, and I'm just going to get brush marks. So I used the selection of this one to knock out the shadow of that one, so this emerges from that shadow. Really important. Control click either on the image part or a mask to make a selection. Okay, so I think we've pretty much gone over everything as far as this goes here. I also made some water drops, so if I go into the first one, let's open that up. So all this is just an ellipse with some effects on it. So if we double click on the effects, or if we just double click the layer, it'll take us to the effects menu. So I used an inner shadow, or a shadow rather. And so I guess we should probably demonstrate that. So I'll turn off orange 1. Then I've got test here, so what I can do is Again, I'll make like a circle, and then we'll come back to the gradient tool. Gradient tool, not the shape tool, sorry. And again, I can pick foreground or background. I don't want this one to be radial because I'm going to make a like a little drop out of it. You know, I'm just going to make a new test layer. Okay, so I've got this selection. I can draw and it's going to paint within it. So I think I went down kind of in that direction for the raindrop. And then you can turn that into an overlay mode. I can see how the white gradation is on the overlay there. And then if you double click it, it's going to bring up your layer style. So I went into stroke. Actually not stroke. I went into inner shadow. And I turned off the use global light. And I made the shadow coming down here. And give a so that's the inner shadow, so I can give it just a little bit of size there. So between inner glow and inner shadow, I kind of get the look I want. Also add a drop shadow in. Then you can give it a size, distance, spread. Okay, so you adjust those parameters, and then this is what I came up with for each drop. So I had an inner shadow, inner glow, and a drop shadow for each water drop. And that's how I did those, and I did the same thing where I duplicated it. And so now if I turn everything off and on, so a little bit of water here. Now I could come into like one of these effects and if I double click a layer, or not that one, that's the test one, so I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to delete this one too. So I go back to water drop. Click on that layer and then I can come to filter, I can liquefy. And if I zoom in here, oops, let's see now. Okay, if I zoom in here, I can come in with this pinch tool and I could kind of reshape my water drop. Just click OK. So now you can see it looks like it's dripping down a little bit better. So same thing, I just duplicate these and just play with the size a little bit. So we've looked at groups, we've looked at layers, we've looked at layer styles, we've looked at Blending modes, usually screen, overlay, and multiply are the ones that I use the most. Also did overlay for the initial color. You want to make sure that you paint the shadows with cooler values. Complement's always great to do that. And then lighter values, lighter analogous colors for the highlights. So with an orange, it kind of goes from orange to darker orange, then into the blues, and then into the yellows, and then the white for the highlight. If it was a banana, it'd be the same thing. Maybe get into some purples for the shades. Wider white for the lighter colors. I asked you guys to do an effect in the course notes, and so the effect that I did was just some drops. I need you to do something like that and look it up. So I found the drops after I looked at this tutorial. I hadn't done drops in a while, so YouTube Photoshop drop. There's a number of them. I looked at a couple. This was the most straightforward. I looked at other effects. This stuff was kind of cool. I think you need to do an action for that. Low poly background, abstract layers. I mean, you type in whatever you want to do. Photoshop effect, and there's a gazillion of them out there on the web, on YouTube. So I want you to be creative and apply some sort of effect to your fruit. I don't care what you do with it. Be creative, but still show me, for example, here is a, well, this is Wix. You don't want to see that, so let's, okay, done with the team, or whatever that was. So this video, they took some fruit and they grabbed a splash sample from who knows where, somewhere on the net. And then with blending modes, they kind of blended it together to make it look like it was part of the apple. So water splash effect, that's a good one there. Just taking different shapes of effects and kind of integrating them in with a folder, with your image. So what I want you guys to do is just research an effect and apply it. Don't completely destroy your fruit, because I still want to see that you can get the shadows and highlights and make some sort of interesting composition and have fun with an effect. You learn Photoshop by doing, and I'd like you to kind of just seek one out and have fun with it. So that's how I put together the oranges. So have fun with your fruit. I think I specified 5. You can duplicate a couple as long as they're not the exact same. But have fun with some effects, at least on one like I've got here. But I'd like you to push a little bit more. This is just a little demo that didn't take long to put together. So I hope that helps. Thanks, and I'll see you in class. Bye-bye.